Hey guys, it's Alex. This is my third official installment of Young Adult Contemporary Book Talks. I'm sure there will be at least one more, probably two, depending on how many more I read, maybe three. I have a lot of books to read. But I've got three for y'all today. Huzzah books. The first one that I read was Hysteria by Miranda. This is a thriller about a girl who killed her boyfriend in self-defense, and she's lacking some memory from that night, I believe. She goes off to a private school and has to deal with the drama there in addition to her own personal drama. And that is the premise of this book. I actually picked this up because I saw someone recommend another of her books, and I was looking for that and they didn't have it, so I got this instead. Close enough. It was okay. I feel like most young adult thrillers aren't particularly great. I don't want to judge all of them because I haven't read all of them, but the ones I've read seem incredibly mediocre, and this was kind of like that. I honestly didn't care about anything or anyone until about halfway through this story, and then about the halfway point, I guess something about the characters clicked with me, or I finally got used to them, or more comfortable with them. And then it picked up a little bit and got more interesting, but for the first half, I literally didn't care about anything. And it was really, I struggled getting into it. There was also a lot going on. There were several different plot lines that didn't really relate to each other, and I kind of thought they were going to relate. And then, as it went along and it became clear that there were several entirely different things, it was just distracting from the plot, and I would have liked it for it to be more concise. That sort of rubbed me the wrong way. If the different plot lines had connected, maybe I would have been more interested. There were also a few ideas Miranda had that were really interesting. There was this one concept of secrets at the prep school being traded and used as currency. And that was really cool. It was just something she didn't delve into very much, other than there were a few secrets that existed at this school, and she said that line once. And I would have liked to see more of that, see more how, that functioned. No one really used or traded secrets except for Jason. Everyone else sort of just kept their own and tried to keep their head under the radar. And I would have liked for her to delve more into some of those cool ideas, and she didn't so much. The summary makes it seem like Mallory is keeping the secret of having killed her boyfriend really close to her vest, and then one person finds out and she has to figure out who it is, but pretty much everyone knows she killed her boyfriend. That's not a spoiler. She gets there, and she's like, so do people know what happened? And the guy she's talking to is like, well, not everyone, but mostly. And it was kind of true, not literally every person knew, but it was pretty much an open secret, and her roommate bailed on her because of it, and she got kind of bullied and people avoided her because of it, and the summary just wasn't incredibly accurate in that regard. However, I did find the ending satisfying. It wasn't anything particularly fantastic, in my opinion, but Miranda did a really good job of wrapping up all the loose ends, and I did feel like there was closure with regards to all the different plot points in the story, which I enjoyed. So I thought the ending was probably the best part. And other than that, this book was fine. I don't regret reading it. It was just kind of dull a little bit. Not really anything particularly fantastic. So I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was History Is All You Left Me by Silvera. This book is about a boy whose ex-boyfriend dies in a drowning accident, and he has to basically come to grips with that and his feelings towards his past relationship. and his ex-boyfriend's current boyfriend, and also his best friend. And it's basically a story about coming to terms with his grief. I couldn't really get into this. The writing style was just not one I meshed with. There was nothing particularly wrong with it. It 100% wasn't my thing, and that was a personal preference on my part, not it was flawed. I also didn't particularly like the characters. Griffin and Theo and Jackson, who were probably the main three people in this book, weren't people I would be friends with. They weren't like horrible, terrible people by any means. They were just kind of annoying and not the kind of people that I click with. And I would have preferred not to have to sit through an entire tedious book with these annoying people. Wade I really liked. I thought Wade was a cool guy, and he was pretty much the only one I really identified with throughout the book. The others were just vaguely annoying. Their presence wasn't of interest to me. The biggest thing that turned me off was the whole dumping your significant other for their own good trope. I hate that so much. Like, this is very much a personal preference. I hate that in movies and books, and it's so popular, and I don't understand why. Like, your relationship should be dead at that point if you'd rather dump them than have an actual conversation about your feelings. Like, I couldn't feel sorry for Griffin, because he keeps talking about wanting Theo to come crawling back to him and tell him that he loves him and all that, and I was like, you dumped Theo. Like, you and Theo were in a relationship, and then you broke up with him. And I couldn't get into that. Like, I didn't feel sorry for him. Like, it was over a year later. He'd been in a relationship with another guy for more than a year. And Griffin was still, like, all hung up on him, and I was just, it irritated me. Like, I couldn't get into that. And I was sort of waiting for it to be over, because there were so many little aspects like that that annoyed me. And the fact that this entire book was centered around romantic relationships. And beyond romantic relationships, there really wasn't much there. Like, Griffin didn't have any friends that he wasn't romantically or sexually involved with. Griffin didn't hang out with people casually. It was all Theo or Jackson or Wade, and it rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I would have liked to see, like, a more of a life from him. And he didn't have much of a life, and I couldn't get into it. I gave it 3 stars because it did hold my interest throughout the whole book, and I definitely got more invested in the second half. I didn't care about anything the first half, and the second half did pull me in more. But it definitely wasn't my kind of thing, and it's one of those books that was like, what? The entire second half, I'm not going to get into spoilers, and I can't really talk about anything because spoilers, but I just couldn't get into it, and I couldn't get into the characters, and it wasn't of much interest to me. But 3 stars because it was a fine read. The final book I read for this book talk is This Is Where It Ends by Marieke Niejkamp. This is about a school shooting. It follows the perspectives of 4 different students who are all interconnected to the school shooter. It follows his ex-girlfriend, his sister's girlfriend, and his sister's girlfriend's brother. The entire book takes place during the 54 minutes of the school shooting. It just basically follows that and follows what happened and what led up to it from these characters' points of view. I really wanted to like this book. I really enjoyed Niejkamp's writing style, and it drew me in, and I really enjoyed her writing. It got me invested in the story rather quickly once I got into it, and I found myself wanting to like it more than I did as I was reading it. For me, The main problem was that it was 280 pages. There are 4 main characters. That means if you divvy it up evenly, you get 70 pages per main character, which isn't a whole lot. There was, one of the girls was gay and dealing with homophobia from her family. One had an older sibling deployed overseas. There was rape and alcoholism and physical abuse and lupus and a sick parent with dementia and a dead parent and rape and racism. And there was so much going on that it was really distracting. Like, nothing she did was particularly poorly done. It was just, there was so much of it that there wasn't time to go in deep on anything, so it was shallow on each one of these issues. When if she had picked, 3 or 4 maybe, and stuck to those and really delved into those and studied them, I feel like this could have been very well done. But it came across as really shallow and one-dimensional because she tried to do way too much. This book could have really benefited from longer chapters and more time on these issues and fewer characters and fewer issues overall. And I would have enjoyed it a whole lot more. Between each chapter, there were tweets or texts or blog posts, which I thought was a really interesting choice, and I really enjoyed those. But they were a little bit confusing. They weren't always clear on who was texting or tweeting or writing the blog post. I wasn't sure how they related to the story. Like, there was one that was from, they kept having tweets from, like, Jay Ecke, I think, or something along those lines. All I saw was the Twitter handle. And I didn't know who that person was. And the book ended, and I still didn't know who that person was, and I don't know if I was supposed to know them or not. It was weird. Like, I would have liked for her to be more clear in who was talking and who was involved. And there were texts that just said "to sis," and I couldn't ever quite tell if they were from Matt. Like, it took me until about halfway through the book to realize that the ones that said "to sis" were from Matt, because it didn't label them as such. And that was a little bit confusing. But I gave this 3 stars because, as I said, I did really enjoy the writing style. And I would like to see another book by her. Like, I would be very interested to read more by her and just see if she can sort of, like, condense her focus and really delve deep into specific issues, as opposed to trying to include every issue and not really getting into it at all. Because I did really, really enjoy her writing. And I don't think this was a terrible book. It just, it needed more time than it had a lot more time. But I'll definitely pick up something by her in the future if I see it. And this concludes the 3rd of my YA Contemporary book talks. There will be more. There are always more. I have so many YA books left to read. But I hope you are enjoying this series and my thoughts on these books. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them are, or if you're planning to read any of them. Bye, guys!